Jurassic Park Operation Genesis was released in 2003 and became a cult classic for so many Jurassic Park fans who were hungry for a dinosaur-based theme park management sim. It flat out made the childhoods of so many and is still loved even to this day, 15 years and 2 console generations later. YouTubers still do Let's Plays of this game, and there's still an active, dedicated modding community. A sequel seems like such an obvious choice, as the fanbase would eat that up, but for some reason it took Universal all this time to realize it. So now, the game developers at Frontier have just released a new game to coincide with the release of Fallen Kingdom, Jurassic World Evolution. So far, I've released 2 videos regarding the new game, the first one being a critique of the trailers, and the second was me pretty much outlining my hopes and dreams, while also hoping for a few changes before the game's release. Now that Jurassic World Evolution is finally here, how does it measure up? How does it compare to the fan favorite JPOG? Instead of writing a straight up review of the new park builder, I figured for this week's video to compare several different aspects of both games to show where Evolution succeeds and fails. And also to show us why JPOG has such a loyal fan base so many years later, while Jurassic World Evolution has been met with really mixed reviews. Let's take a look. The dinosaurs are the stars and life of both games. Ultimately, they are what we came for, to watch, manage, and occasionally control these amazing animals. So, how are the dinosaurs in both? In JWE, the dinosaurs are a mixed bag. On the positive side, they look gorgeous. Their animations, models, and skins are all so well detailed. Besides all the inaccuracies, they appear so lifelike. Just the way they move is so moving. It's awesome. Coupled with the sounds straight out of the films, you're definitely gonna get goosebumps playing it. Sadly, with these compliments come many shortcomings. First, releasing dinosaurs and seeing them come to life is easily the best part, because there's not much beneath the exterior. After being released, the dinosaurs don't do anything that interesting. Also, if you so happen to breed a dinosaur that's not in the films, chances are the sounds will just be a generic grunt or roar. On the other hand, in the OG or the JPOG, I cracked myself up. The dinosaurs are honestly pretty much awesome, even the ones that don't make a film appearance or don't get a big role. Of course, the technology is 15 years older, so the detail is nowhere near as good as Evolution, but that's understandable. There aren't any alternate skins, and it only contains half the amount of creatable genre. But what we're given is still truly special. The main differentiating factor is that the dinos in JPOG actually feel like real, living, breathing animals, while the ones in JWE are just illusions. Besides just eating, drinking, wandering, and extremely repetitive fighting, they sleep, they yawn, they play together, they hunt together, sneeze, limp, scratch, everything you expect animals to do. Even 15 years later, I still enjoy watching them do their thing. That's half the fun of the game. The dinosaurs in Evolution have great physical detail, but without the same attention to behavioral detail. It's missing stuff like cooperative hunting for the raptors, and the socialization is very lackluster. Instead of playing chase or jumping around with one another, socializing literally just consists of a few dinosaurs standing around in a circle and talking to one another. It's just like watching them pop a cold one with the boys. It's not that entertaining. So you'll see them for like 5 seconds, notice how they never do anything of interest, and then move on. Also, JPOG has a far smaller dinosaur count, but at least every dinosaur felt totally unique. The game brought in a plethora of interesting, new, and cool dinosaurs, such as the Acrocanthosaurus, Carcharodontosaurus, Kentrosaurus, Albertosaurus, and so on. It's really helpful for learning about dinosaurs and gaining interest in them. Evolution brought in plenty of more obscure dinosaurs too, but so many of them overlap. There are 5 different stegosaurs and 5 ankylosaurs and so on that look and sound nearly identical to each other. Can someone who's not a paleontological expert explain to me the difference between a Huangosaurus and a Chungkingosaurus, and why it is so crucial to have both in the game? Instead of going further, adding even crazier dinos like Therizinosaurus or Dinochirus, Evolution takes the easy path, basically reskins a few rigs, and calls them new dinosaurs. And one more thing, the dinosaurs in Jurassic World Evolution have far more specific needs. At first, it seems cool and adds a layer of realism, like some dinosaurs have high social needs, some like more forest, others don't like overpopulation, etc. In theory, this sounds good, but it severely restricts creativity. I love recreating scenes I see in the films and making cool looking exhibits, but my creative genius may not jive with some of the dinos. Like on Isla Sorna, I wanted to make a massive free roam herbivore exhibit because it's Isla Sorna. But the Stegos and Ankies got upset that there were too many animals in one paddock, even though that paddock was half of the island. And I can't have a forest-filled velociraptor enclosure, where you can barely see them because they like a lot of grassland too. Stuff like that gets me really upset. And then to make matters far worse, and maybe the biggest flaw of the game, is how it doesn't even show you their needs before you make them. So every time you create a new dinosaur, you have no idea what it wants beforehand. This is detrimental when you breed a social dinosaur, because you don't realize you'll need to make like 3 more of these, but they'll rampage if you don't. And even if you have grassland and forest in your enclosure, but just barely miss the mark, the dino will rampage and kill all your guests. In JPOG, as long as you gave your animals food, water, and an occasional hunt, they'll be perfectly happy no matter what. So the game gives you the freedom to go nuts. You want a massive herbivore enclosure? Go for it. No limits. Things start to look a little better for Evolution when it comes to the park building. Now, there's a wide variety of buildings for you to plop down in your park, from the Innovation Center to bowling alleys. And there are no limits for how many of anything you can place. You're free to spam as many bars as your heart desires. Power is now something you have to concern yourself with, making sure there's enough electricity for your buildings and fences. When the power's out long enough, it becomes a dangerous situation, especially if you own raptors.
You bred raptors.
It's cool that the raptors are a threat and actually test defenses on occasion, but I'll get into that later. Once again, some of these additions are good, but come with caveats. The building mechanics of the game are so finicky. You can barely place anything anywhere due to terrain restraints, pointlessly gigantic buildings, and a lack of room on many of the 5 deaths. Half of my gameplay has to be me just looking for the perfect spot to place down buildings. Admittedly, Operation Genesis doesn't offer you too much in terms of creative liberty. Paddocks have a grid feel to them, there's a cap on just about everything, and a lack of customization. But at least I can place buildings down. The shape or scale of my park never felt limited. You could honestly make a more interesting looking park in JPOG than in Evolution, and you get to experience that park in many more ways. You were able to use the many different attractions to view the park the way your guests would. There were balloon rides, safari jeeps, viewing domes, and so on for you to gaze in awe at Jurassic Park. Now, with the exception of the gyrosphere, you're not able to do any of this. There are viewing vents and viewing platforms still, but you're not allowed to use them for yourself. Without new and exciting ways to view your park and dinosaurs, the experience gets stale. Not that there's much to view anyways in Evolution. In this new game, the guests are... yeah, they're pretty much non-existent. Well, I mean, they're there, but have no substance to them. Nothing to make them feel like actual guests, as opposed to bundles of pixels floating around your park. Again, the classic JPOG handled this far better. There weren't as many guests, ranging between 1 and 200 depending on whether it was a coupon day, but every guest had a name, a home state, thoughts on the park that you could read, and their own needs. If you didn't own a food quiche, they'd starve. No bathrooms led to death by constipation. There aren't even bathrooms in Evolution. You could also do things like take a look at guest opinions to see where your park could use some improvement, and whether or not people actually enjoy it. You know, these felt like actual tourists. They'd walk around with their JP balloons and T-Rex plushies and go eat. Go to the bathroom, use rest areas and benches. In Evolution, instead of providing for their needs, all buildings do is increase an arbitrary number rating. We don't actually see guests enjoying or needing them. Like the dinosaurs themselves, the visitors are merely visuals. It's the illusion of having guests, as opposed to actually having real guests.
It's still the flea circus. It's all an illusion.
When we have control again.
You've never had control. That's the illusion.
One improvement I definitely like in JWE is how Dinosaur Breakouts is a more common occurrence than in Operation Genesis. You'll notice your animal's comfort rating drop, and once that reaches a certain point, depending on the dinosaur, it will attempt to break out and attack the guests. This mechanic keeps you on your toes, so you're constantly worrying about the needs of your assets, especially during storms when their comfort continuously drops. So all it takes is one storm to push your T-Rex over the edge. Then when all Shrek breaks loose, you have to manage your ranger teams to repair damaged fences and your helicopters to sedate the rampaging dinosaurs. It's a fun and exciting situation to have on your hands. However, this is where previous problems come into play. Some creatures are super picky about how they want their exhibits, and even if you make it perfect for them, they don't sense what's actually in the exhibit, but what's within a certain radius. So sometimes, even if their paddock is perfect, they'll stay in a corner, only sense what's in that corner, realize that corner doesn't have everything they want, and then rampage. Gosh, it's so annoying. So the ideas behind this system are great, but when everything is pieced together, it just leads to an irritating experience. And when the dinosaurs do break out and kill guests, who cares? Again, the guests are just a visual. They're never actually real people. In JPOG, breakouts rarely occurred if you were good at the game. Sometimes you can go entire games without a carnivore running on the loose. But on the off chance that did happen and a guest died, you really felt it. You lost stars, which were far more difficult to get, and you were forced to pay a hefty fee for each death. So you wanted to be sure that your guests were safe and taken care of. In Evolution, there's no real impact when people die. Your star rating and income are constantly in flux, so you bounce back from whatever losses there are very quickly, so you don't feel it at all. To sum it up, security and visitor safety in JPOG actually mattered. Here in Evolution, that stuff is just numbers on a spreadsheet, and doesn't ultimately impact your game. It tries to impress you with new shiny gameplay mechanics, but lacks any sort of weight. I know this video comes across as overwhelmingly negative, but I just want to take an objective look at Evolution and highlight its pros and cons, many of which can be seen when comparing it to the much older Operation Genesis. Through this, you can see how many of the game's strengths are only exterior, but dig a little deeper in any aspect and you'll notice a mountain of flaws. The tourists have no real presence, the animal roster is extremely repetitive, the dinosaurs themselves don't do much of interest, breakouts are too frequently caused by super picky nagging Camarasaurus, building placement is extremely aggravating, space is super limited even on the biggest islands, the combat system is rigid and stale, and there's a lack of viewpoints to enjoy your creation from. But on the plus side, the dinosaurs look fantastic, there are no caps on anything, building fences and paths feel more fluid, and of course, the lovely voice work of Jeff Goldblum. I know there was a huge amount of excitement going into Evolution, especially because it's been so long since another Jurassic Park Tycoon game has been released. But I don't expect it to be met with the same love and admiration of Operation Genesis or Zoo Tycoon 2. JPOG is not a perfect game, no one's denying that, but it nailed both the highs and lows of running a Jurassic Park. You get the wonder and majesty of these magnificent animals, but also the heartbreak, death, and destruction it entails. Overall, for Jurassic World Evolution, I certainly enjoy playing it, but there are some major hiccups and poor decisions that prevent it from being the true successor the loyal fanbase deserves. On the upside, Prehistoric Kingdom is looking better and better each day. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to please leave a like and subscribe. See you next week.